Hello and welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the journey of the gorgeous Venus through one of its two home signs of Taurus, which begins at 11:34 p.m. Universal Central Time on the 16th of March and concludes on the 11th of April. This is really exciting. It gives us all opportunities. I'm going to share with you what Venus in Taurus represents, but also there are three big influences or angles that Venus will forge during her journey that I'm really excited to tell you about. I'm also going to share the event chart, Saturn supportive, Pluto potentially very disruptive, and that could be two influences that play out over the next few weeks. Also, what does this journey represent for your zodiac sign? So lots to share with you. If you are new here, it's great to have you with us. Please like, but also subscribe to my channel. If you would like to comment, I do interact with all comments. This is very much a community. If you're a returning visitor, thank you so much for joining me once more. Now, Venus in Taurus is an influence that can really heighten desire, but it also can give us an opportunity to appreciate things a lot more and also work on the foundations of our existences. We've all been feeling the effects of the increase in costs, which has created a squeeze, and Venus is very much to do with money. That's one of its other influences through the sign of Taurus. But it's also to do with how we value ourselves, but also our core values, the things that we lead our lives around. But of course it can be very much to do with sensuality. If you're a dedicated follower of fashion, this can be a fine time to think about giving yourself a little bit of an upgrade. But if you're someone who's quite earthy and wants to engage in the more practical side of this influence, it could be this can be a great time to garden, grow your own vegetables, make food from scratch. But if you're a crafter, a homemaker, anything to do with the more tactile crafts like needlework and pottery, those kind of things could be very, very attractive. So that gives you a little bit of a flavour. It's a rare Taurus or someone who has Venus in Taurus or in the second house in their natal chart that doesn't really enjoy good food and wine. But if you do have any Tauran influences in your chart, perhaps the challenge you may have at times can be around jealousy, possessiveness. It's very important for Venus in Taurus people, or for Taurans, or for those people with the second house, to enjoy security, stability. They like loyalty. And one of the reasons for this is because this is a fixed sign. So the quality really benefits from a degree of continuity. Also, it's Earth, of course, and it's the domiciliary planet of the sign of Taurus. There's no other planet that governs this sign. It is just down to Venus. So we've got some exciting aspects coming up that are going to be forging a link to Venus over the next few weeks. But first of all, let's have a look at the solar event chart, which imagines this from the perspective of us all, collectively relating to this, with Aries, 0 degrees Aries, the first point of the entire zodiac. And of course, Venus is in, therefore, the second house, so that's gorgeous. And it's forging a link with Saturn that's very constructive in house 12. It could be that the things we've been doing behind the scenes can now start to pay off, or if we've been thinking very deeply how we can reshape our approach to resources, now we can get by in a bit less, but actually not necessarily feel it quite so much, as long as we, of course, can cover the core costs, which I know is proving a challenge for some people. But Venus in Taurus is also in a square with Pluto, and because Pluto is just on the cusp of moving into Aquarius, I see this more as a second 11th house energy. So I feel over the next few weeks, if there are certain relationships that feel leveraged, either romantically or around money, you know, someone could be extremely charming, but actually their motive is to get what they need from the equation. That could be a factor over the next few weeks. Also, the Sun, Mercury and Neptune are all together in a conjunction in the 12th house of Pisces. So more sensitive strands, compassion, looking out for those who are less fortunate, could all be ways in which we can work with this Venus energy. But in terms of the event chart, what really is interesting is the ascendant is at 14 degrees Scorpio, but right on the descendant, which is how we relate to other people, is the disruptor planet of Uranus. So if you're in a relationship which isn't going so well, that's definitely going to ask some questions over the next few weeks. But you can see from the chart on the screen that Venus is in house 6, very practical, and Saturn is in house 4, very much to do with home and emotion. And we also have the Sun, Mercury and Neptune there. So I think we're all very mindful of home security, you know, where we live, the cost of that, making it work in this crunch that's going on. But Venus is square in this more technical chart is from the 6th to the 3rd houses. And that gives us some choices. We can't do it all, basically. And although elementally they're both in earth signs, because Venus is just about to go into Aquarius, I feel that there could be situations where we may feel that we're doing our best to reach into other people's situations, give them support, whether it's a colleague, whether it's at home, whether it's domestically. But if you feel that is a situation where it's more give than get, that is the more power potential of Pluto that we all have to look out for over the next few weeks. But what about those aspects? So we got 3. So the first up is a conjunction with the North Node. This goes from the 18th to the 22nd of March, but is exact on the 21st. Now this could give us all a desire to be more affectionate, to enjoy some calorific goodies, to eat and drink. The more feminine energies can also come through at this time. And if you're someone who has a great appreciation of culture, you like to go to galleries or museums, that can come through. Or it could be just a real need to have a real shop-a-thon and get some really nice items to enhance your wardrobe. But also in relationships, that particular aspect can give us a greater need for closeness and intimacy. Now, a much more radical and challenging influence comes up from the 28th of March to the 2nd of April and is exact right at the end of March. And that's a conjunction between Venus and Uranus. If you're single, don't be surprised if someone appears like a comet in your life and really provides a lot of excitement. And it could be that you're really going to feel a magnetic connection with one another, and it could get very hot and very steamy, but very quickly. But equally, it could burn out very quickly too. Then again, in an existing relationship, this is a time to make sure that you and yours are not just going through the motions and taking one another a little bit for granted. So important to try and reinvigorate the relationship by being a bit more experimental, whether it is around intimacy, whether it's around social interests, or giving one another a little bit more space to actually go and do more singular pursuits. That can also work well, because then when you get back together, there is that extra sort of energy that comes in from different interests. But of course, it depends on the type of relationship you have. The third really major influence is enchanting. It's between Venus and Neptune from the 4th to the 9th of April, exact on the 7th. If you meet someone across those days that you really feel strongly drawn to, I feel that this could be quite a magical experience. I can't guarantee it would be a lifetime relationship, but it certainly can be very enchanting. The magnetism that would be shared between you would be considerable. But if you are settled in your life, it would be a great time to go to the movies, or if you enjoy photography or video making, that can also be a great outlet, as can the arts. But again, if you're someone who's a dedicated follower of fashion, this would be a great opportunity to reinvigorate your approach and dazzle those you come in contact with. Now, I'm going to give you a flavour of each of the zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. But if you would like to understand how serious astrology can have such a helpful impact on your life, if you give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can produce your life roadmap report, which will give you a much more intimate understanding of the patterns that have played out in your existence so far. Within my special package of 30% off, you can also get your 12-month personal forecast. No 2 charts are the same, totally individual for you, and can give you searing insights. Please see the link below for more. If you don't know your time, I have devised a new chart based on the sun with no ascendant. It does use noon, so the moon is something that may be slightly out, but it will give you a lot of information that can be very relatable in terms of these YouTube videos, and you can still benefit from the discount too. Please see below. Now, Aries, for you, this could be a time when your finances suddenly take a little bit of an uplift. We've seen the financial markets go through quite a shudder in recent days. My prediction is, even if there will be some value that's been taken out of some of the big banks in terms of equities, I feel things will stabilise, and I feel for you personally, you could be surprised by some kind of improvement in your situation over the next few weeks. Perhaps it's going to be a permanent contract. Perhaps it's going to be some money that you find in an old coat. It could be that you have a little bit of a flutter. Someone could be very generous. Someone could appreciate your talent as a cook or your hosting skills. So some kind of loveliness is entirely possible for you over the next few weeks. Now, Taurus, you of course are being influenced by the radical energies of Uranus, which is pushing you to do lots of different things and has been for some years now. But with Venus back in your sign, I feel this is going to bring you into the moment. So if there have been some doubts, or you've been going through a period of analysis around the relationship in your world, or if you're single, what you would really like, you move much more into a more purposeful phase. I still feel that with that gathering of energy in Pisces, if you are not attached to someone at the moment, there could be some kind of connection with someone in a friendship group or a shared interest, which could prove to be really, really gripping. But of course, Uranus has been also pushing you to lead your life on your own terms. And I think this has been helping you to redefine your values. And I think there could be more of that over the next few weeks. But if you do like to really feel good about your hair, your makeup, if you wear it, or your clothes, I think this is a fine time to be thinking about giving yourself some kind of relaunch. Because it will draw a lot of attention to you in a really gratifying and reassuring way. So I think your sense of attractiveness is really going to climb over the next few weeks. Now, Gemini, Venus being in the 12th house could see you doing some soul searching on top of the soul searching you've already been doing with the North Node in your 12th house and Uranus there. So there's been a lot of thinking about the deeper strands in your situation. Venus moving into this area could see you think quite nostalgically about someone from your past. But because Pluto is forging an abrasive right angle to Venus at the start of this process, if you're in a relationship which is not working very well, I think it is possible that you will try to liberate yourself from it. if you feel that you've given it absolutely everything to try and make it work. But if you are thinking nostalgically about someone from your past, it really wouldn't be a surprise if somehow or another they keep coming up in your thoughts, or you even check them out discreetly on your social media. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to get in touch. It doesn't mean that an old flame is going to come back to the heart of your world. But the 12th house can be a time of very profound thinking. In some ways, it could even be a time of grieving. Even if you've broken up with someone some while ago, there may still be some elements, some residual energies and feelings that are still floating around within you that may need still to be worked through. And the next few weeks can be a fantastic opportunity to do so. Now, in terms of Cancer, Venus moving into this area, this is the sector of friendship. One of the things that I feel, because of the intensity of media these days, it's very easy to compare our situation to other people's and think that maybe our romantic glass is half empty. So, for example, if we're not in a relationship, everyone else seems to be, going on holidays and it's all amazing and so forth. I think Venus in your 11th solar house is reminding you of the benefits you get from your friendship group. Those relationships, they may not be romantic. Maybe there is someone you do have some kind of deeper or more physical connection with, perhaps periodically when it suits you both. But the key is to celebrate the things we have in common, not necessarily just focus on what we don't have. So even in an ongoing relationship that perhaps doesn't have all of the attributes you want, if it has a lot of the things that brings a degree of stability or companionship to your world, that's definitely something to think about over the next few weeks. Now, of course, with Pluto just about to go into the 8th house, if there is some politics in your romantic relationship, and it is about what you or the other person wants from the future, and if you both want something different, I think the fact that Saturn is in your 9th house, which is about potentially about escaping something that feels trapping or limiting, then that could be a factor too. But essentially, you could meet someone through a social event, something that you have an interest in. It could be an introduction through a friend of a friend. You can celebrate the things you share with your friends and those relationships, or in an ongoing tie, just think about the things that are on the upside and not be too influenced by how it seems that everybody else has it all, because the truth is that very few people have it all. So Leo, for you, Venus moving to the top of your chart helps you to bring your enormous natural charisma and majesty to your professional situation. Those relationships can be boosted hugely over the next few weeks. Your ability to work well with people, to be diplomatic, but also, let people know that you have certain expectations and standards too, can be really positive. What's the catch? Well, if you're in a long-term relationship with Pluto just about to move into your sector of relating, where however much you try to understand where the other person's coming from, you always feel that they have to get their way or they have to have some kind of domination. I feel that that's something that you won't be appreciating so much. And of course, Saturn is now in house 8, which can be about endings. And the 8th house can also be about where we're most devoted or where we share things very closely, particularly finances. However, in a purely professional sense, I think this could be a really valuable few weeks for you, help you to raise your profile, gain greater recognition and acclaim. So that's really exciting. But also, if you're single, Venus in the 10th house could see you thinking more about settling down, meeting someone who is not so much focused on having a lively social time, but wants maybe a family, perhaps a property will be in your thinking. You're thinking more about how you can stabilise your situation. That may be something that you can start to set your intentions around. If you're in a relationship which is evolving, then that may be the next stage. Then again, with Venus in the 10th house, don't be surprised if someone from a different age group forges a connection with you over the next few weeks. Virgo, for you, Venus in your sister earth sign of Taurus is very much about the truth. Venus in the 9th house wants us to understand what the reality is of our situation. Because you've had Uranus in this location for some while, I think it has been shaking things up. If things have been a bit tense, and of course now Saturn has moved into your sector of relating, Venus perhaps asks you to be a little bit smoother, a little bit more diplomatic in saying what you need, but also setting your boundaries. But equally, it is possible that if something isn't working for you, the movement of Pluto out of your 5th house, where it's been for 15 years, very much to do with romance, and into the 6th house of practicalities, could see you looking at a relationship in a bit more of a clear-eyed way and cutting through the froth which frankly Neptune has created over the years since 2012. There may have been some magic moments with Neptune, but also some profoundly disappointing ones when it comes to alliances. Now, on this event, of course, Mercury, your ruler, is compromised by Neptune. So if you meet someone for the first time, watch out for the truth, because it may be a little bit out of reach. Someone could be a bit evasive, not necessarily because they're being deliberately sinister, but unless you're clear on where things stand, that's going to undermine your confidence a little bit. So you need to know where you stand over the next few weeks. Libra, of course, Venus is also your ruling planet too, but moving into the 8th house can be exceptionally good for any business interests, any professional partnerships. But in a personal context, if you are seeing someone and it's been going well, things could get a lot closer. And because perhaps you've had your guard up because of all the impact that Pluto has had over the years around your emotional situation, perhaps the move of Pluto on the 23rd into your sister sign of Aquarius is going to give you more desire to go for what you want. And of course, Venus is about desire. But in the 8th house, you're looking for true devotion here. You want someone to match the level of commitment that suits you. If you're more of a free spirit at the moment and you're not necessarily looking for an ongoing relationship, the need for a greater connection to others in that physical domain is going to increase. So there could be some rock and roll moments over the next few weeks if that's where you are in your life at the moment, Libra. Scorpio, Venus moving into this area is glorious because this is the 7th house and it's ironic. So the energies of its rulership of Libra are really enhanced, but of course it is in the sign of Taurus, so I feel the next few weeks can be really lovely for you. If you are born right at the start of Scorpio, Pluto, however, could cause some mischief. So relationships need to be based on a fair share. So it doesn't necessarily have to be each person puts the same amount of money in or the same qualities, but there just needs to be a sense that they're all in. And if you're in a situation where you feel someone isn't all in, with Saturn in your sector of romance now, what you're looking for really is more encouragement or more signals of someone's intent. The thing with Venus in the 7th house, they won't necessarily be verbalized. So do watch out for the communication that comes from body language, because the way someone looks at you or the way they may turn towards you, open themselves up, or conversely keep their back to you, is a good idea of what the likely potential is. But if there have been differences and there have been tensions, what Venus in the 7th house is asking you to do is hear what the other person is saying. So your listening skills, particularly if you're born right at the start of the sign of Scorpio, they're under a degree of pressure over the next few days for sure, and perhaps longer because of exactly where Pluto is going to hover for the next couple of years. If you're later in the sign of Scorpio, I think Pluto will have much less of an impact, but still Venus can have an impact because it's really asking you to get to the nub of what you want in your relationships. Uranus has been asking this question for some while as well, but of course Uranus, like space, can be direct, so there may have been times when you wanted to be up close and personal, other times spinning out to do your own thing, which has been confusing to certain people. Now Sagittarius, for you, Venus into the 6th house, is about life's practicalities. And you know, if we make someone we love a cup of tea in bed, do a bit of hoovering if they're not necessarily expecting it, put the washing on, say, look, I'm cooking tonight. These things are just awesome because they're a physical manifestation of care. So look out for demonstrating those kind of qualities over the next few weeks. But if you're single, it could be a connection with someone in your workplace or just in an ordinary environment, such as, traveling, could be in the supermarket queue, perhaps at the fitness suite. You'll start to see that there is someone who maybe can just creep up on your senses, but can be actually very important. But with Saturn now in the 4th house, I don't really feel that you're going to easily or not so gregariously connect with people over the next few weeks. I think it's going to be more guarded because you're wanting to make sure that whatever you do is actually going to have some greater meaning. This is a bit uncharacteristic for you, but this is the impact of Saturn, and there will be more of this to come over the next 2.5 years. Capricorn, for you, this is fabulous. Venus moving into this area gives you the permission to really be much more playful, affectionate, maybe a bit cheeky. If there is someone that you fancy, even though you can be a little cautious. I think Saturn being in the 3rd house, linking with Venus, suggests that as long as you're sincere, even if someone didn't necessarily reciprocate, I feel that you can emerge from opening up and showing how you feel with your dignity and morale intact. Obviously, the world of relating is so complex these days, never been more complex. We just don't know how some people will react to us. So we can be exactly the same way to one person who will love it, and someone else will be completely unimpressed. And therefore, it makes dating quite a challenging environment. But I feel the best way to get closer to people generally is by mixing and mingling. So that's the social whirl. Your sense of humour, your earthy approach to life can be really appreciated. Pluto moving to the end of your sign and into Aquarius, the 2nd house, suggests that your core values are going to be something that come under the astral microscope a lot more over the next few years. So even if you do encounter someone that you really fancy and your pulse races quicker from connecting with them, the binding principle is going to be whether this is a person who shares your credo. Now that may sound a little bit old-fashioned, but I do feel it is going to play out. If you're in an existing relationship, it's definitely a time to try and have some quality time together, especially if you've got young children. So if you can get some support to go out, even if it's for a few hours, and just have some moments of laughter, and perhaps go for a drink if you can, go for a meal, or even make a meal for one another, that can be tremendously enchanting and romantic. So being more playful, having a little bit more confidence to be a bit more risk-taking in terms of how you feel about other people could have some very big upsides, even if there could be some downsides if you have to go on a few dates before you maybe get some kind of thing going where it's fun and it's pleasant. It doesn't have to be life lasting, but that would give you some confidence to then perhaps eventually meet the right person. So I feel that this can be a trigger for something really exciting, and with Jupiter moving in to your 5th house on the 16th of May, there's a lot of excitement to come for your love life later this year. Which brings us to Aquarius. Venus moving into this area is really interesting because the 4th house, you can almost guarantee it that Venus on the 4th house cusp will trigger a desire to beautify the environment. So we actually brought a lamp which has arrived today. It's an Art Deco lamp, so it's very old. It's been refitted somehow, but it's really unusual, and it didn't actually cost us a great deal of money, but we're absolutely buzzing. And of course my sun is in Aquarius, so Venus into the 4th house. We've done all these works to this house since we've lived here, so it's beginning to come together, and that's very, very gratifying. So redecoration, furnishings, doing some crafting from home could be very satisfying. If you work from home, that actually can start to give you some kind of financial reward. Also, you could offer a service in your local community that may be based on the home or the needs of a family, which actually could do very well too, because Venus is about loot, it's not just about relationships. But the 4th house energy would also suggest a good time to get together with loved ones or family members for a reunion, or you could hear from someone in your circle or extended circle, but you can have a greater appreciation of the people that are really meaningful to you, I feel, over the next few weeks. Pisces, that collection of energy in your sign, including Neptune, your co-ruler, is really interesting. That 1st house energy suggests that you're wanting to make something happen at the present time. You're in a mood of initiation. Will Neptune drain you of the will and energy to go for it, or will it help you to enchant people? It's down to you. But with Venus now in your 3rd house, people can hang on your every word over the next few weeks. There could also be some greater social interaction in terms of your immediate environment, whether it's community push, maybe a neighbour is friendly, you exchange some some plants or some seeds if you're in the northern hemisphere, or if you're down south, perhaps just have a really nice chat and a very sociable one as well. If you're someone who's quite gifted with expressing ideas, those ideas will gain greater currency, literally, over the next few weeks. So that's exciting. If you love to sing, you enjoy karaoke, or you like to write, your words and expression can be really enhanced. If there is somebody in your everyday world that you like, it could be that they're not conscious of it. The 3rd house is very much about people we see all the time, but don't be surprised if they become more conscious of your presence around them, and there just seems to be a more enjoyable connection. It doesn't have to be romantic. That connection can in itself be very gratifying indeed. It's been a real pleasure being with you, sharing this glorious event. Please do like or subscribe to my channel. And for now, take care and goodbye.